News update, January 23, 2024. The world is shrinking as wars, volcanic eruptions, floods, attacks on cargo ships and political unrest are putting so many countries off limits for tourism. From the treasures of the Holy Land to the shores of the Black Sea, the wilds of Iceland, and the coast of Ecuador. More of the world is no-go than at any time since the COVID pandemic. Here are some of the main developments from the past week. The war in Ukraine continues to escalate as Russia intensifies its airstrikes and ground attacks on Ukrainian territory. Ukraine claims to have shot down a Russian spy plane and destroyed a Russian landing ship in the past week, while Russia accuses Ukraine of targeting its oil facilities with drones. The international community is divided over how to respond to the crisis, with some countries pledging more aid and sanctions to Ukraine, and others calling for dialogue and de-escalation. 23. The war in Gaza has entered its third month, with no sign of a ceasefire or a political solution. Israel has launched hundreds of airstrikes and artillery shells on the besieged enclave, killing more than 2,000 Palestinians, mostly civilians, and injuring over 10,000. Hamas and other militant groups have fired thousands of rockets and missiles at Israel, killing 12 Israelis and injuring over 300. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is dire, with shortages of food, water, medicine, and electricity. 4. The war in Yemen has worsened as the Houthi rebels have advanced on the last government stronghold of Marib, threatening to cut off the oil-rich region from the rest of the country. The Saudi-led coalition has intensified its air campaign, hitting civilian targets and infrastructure, while the Houthis have stepped up their drone and missile attacks on Saudi Arabia. The UN has warned of a looming famine and a humanitarian catastrophe, as more than 20 million Yemenis need urgent assistance. 4. The war in Ethiopia has spread to new regions, as the Tigray rebels have formed an alliance with other opposition groups and launched a new offensive against the government forces. The Ethiopian army has retaliated with airstrikes and ground operations, while the Eritrean troops have continued to commit atrocities and human rights violations in Tigray. The conflict has displaced more than 2 million people and left more than 5 million in need of food aid. 4. The war in Afghanistan has entered a new phase, as the Taliban have taken over most of the country and declared the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. The US and its allies have completed their withdrawal, leaving behind thousands of Afghans who worked with them and fear for their lives. The Taliban have faced resistance from the National Resistance Front in the Panjshir Valley, as well as from the Islamic State group, which has carried out several deadly attacks.